at all levels.
Your brain just sort of fills in the gaps
It
for
was
things that
missed
you
three
expect.
times. Yeah, I mean,
Also,
proofreading
uh,
is difficult
many
sometimes.
players and you know who you are. I count myself among you. Uh, don't read the full text of cards. You sort of get the idea of what a card does, and once you feel like you know, you just never look at the card text,
And then you
and
get it wrong.
that results in misplays. And then once you make the misplay, that's when you go back and read the card,
That's
and
happened to me before,
you
yeah.
know it happens. So obviously, Seal of Cadras. If you want to see the typo, now's your chance. It's going to be fixed soon.
Yep, I mean, it's a pretty funny typo, but I guess it just proves that proofreading the last letter of word is actually pretty difficult. Anyway, on to Spore Lord, or more accurately, Fungi. And I will quote from the patch notes, Fungi, brackets, now more fun to play against at level 1. No kidding. It's now a 6/6, the Fungi itself. Now, I'm happy about this for two reasons. One, it makes it less abusable in Unlegendary, which is a format that I'm going to be concerned about coming up because of the Kill Cup.
Hmm.
But the other thing is in Draft, it turns out losing in player level 1 because of a wall of 7/7s is not entertaining. And
Yeah,
when I say a wall, I mean 4 7/7s and a full health Tuscan Spore Lord on the board. And
yeah.
then they play another one.
People will not appreciate your spamming of 7/7s. That's for sure.
And they become 12/12s. I think that's the most unfair thing about it. At level 3, they're not too good, but at level 1 and 2, they're just insane. So I'm glad it's a little more fair at level 1.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see what effect this minor debuff has on the Spore Lord, or minor nerf on the Spore Lord is. Um, it it certainly isn't doesn't resolve the issue that a lot of players have, which is how do I deal with an extra, relatively large size body that my opponent just created out of nothing.
I think the main point is that 6 health dies to the benchmark for underdrops. I think the
Hmm.
benchmark for underdrops has actually gone up to 7 arguably, because there's so many good 7 attack ones in Rise of the Forgeborn and Secrets. Like there's Rob Fiend and there's Geist and all the Necreum ones are 7 and all the other ones 6. You need to look at that, by the way, guys. But anyway, the benchmark is mostly 6 unless you're playing Necreum and then you're cheating. But that meant Fungi were incredibly irritating because you played your giant guy at level 1 and you don't have access to Swamp Moss Lurker anymore. So it was like, hey, I've got my Spine Leaf, and it dies to his well-scaling guy. Okay. And it's a token, that's the best thing. I think the reason Spore Lord was kind of broken and dropped was alright, so I pick this really good card and get 2 really good cards as well. It's like you would pick 3 first picks at once,
Yeah.
which was a little extreme.
Right. No, it is that you're picking 2 more cards that you already want. This is sort of similar in the idea that I have with Brood Queen, where it's like this is one card that's doing 2 things that you want. It's giving you 2 cards that you want,
Yeah.
and I think this is similar. This is one card, one pick choice. It's more cards in your deck, but it's one pick choice from your draft pool that gives you 3 things that you want.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Or at least two of the 3 things. You might never even play the Spore Lord down. You might just use the 7/7s as big bodies
That
and
happens
just
a lot.
take a 1 card penalty for doing that. That's fine. You never have to pick another plant if you treat the card that way.
I mean, you also have Tangle Sprout that you can get in draft.
Yep.
And also Constructive if you're playing Spore Lord. Tangle Sprout's a good way of doing it. But Fungi, the main point was you didn't always get the Spore Lord, but you usually got at least 1 Fungi, and they were ridiculous even if you weren't copying them. So
Yep.
I think that's the reason why they got nerfed. They were a little too good in draft, even if you didn't have the Spore Lord. That's the main problem. Whereas, like, the Abomination, instead, the Soulbind works with his ability, but not on their own very well. So, yeah, 36 is still a significant penalty, but in draft it's 32. Because you usually only get 1.
Right. Exactly.
If you get 2 of them, you're incredibly lucky, by the way.
Yeah, you're happy about it.
Because 34 card deck, who cares? If you get both of them in player level 1, you actually win. Like, just straight there, because there's no way they can deal with that many 7/7s. So, that's my take on that. Anyway, so we're going to move on to Mr. Spelunker, also known as Tiny Grimes' least favorite common in the set, 'cause he kept getting millions of them when he did his pack opening. Yeah, he got more Spelunkers than I think any other card in the set. So, Spelunker at 2 and 3 always felt pretty decent, especially with Glider. But at level 1 it was too small. However, they have now upped its stats to 5/6 at level 1, which
That's
means
a good upgrade.
I am happy. This is Hydra stats, right? Pretty much?
I love Hydras.
Yeah, you love your Hydras.
Is that the question?
This is an Alolan
that's all
Hydra now.
Hydras is so good.
It's
I
an Alolan
think that's
Hydra.
what we're talking about. No, I agree. 5/6 is a respectable body. It is something that you can use effectively in a variety of situations. Whereas a 4/5, you're limited in whether you can use it to block and still stick around on the board, or if you have to get extreme value from that one armor play.
Yeah, I think it's actually. I don't think it's very, very good, but I think I'd pick it at a similar level to Hydras now, because if you get what is, in my opinion, the best Alolan common, which is the Glider, which is the 5, 6, 9, 10.
Yep, Sky Knight Glider.
Yeah, Skynet Glider, which has 2 mobility in the middle. If you put a Spelunker, even now, like before the buff, if you put like a leveled appropriate leveled Spelunker on a Glider, that thing becomes really annoying. Because you basically you move, swing. It's like the new Cloud Reaver Titan almost, but in common if you get both of those cards. Because it's difficult to kill, swings once, doesn't get to move again, but it usually kills the 2 level 3s in front of it.
You know, that just made me think of a card. I don't think this exists, but I don't think we have anything like this. But give a creature mobility when it's in the center lane, and then give it an activate effect when it's outside of the center lane that pushes it back into the center lane. So you can do like have.
Oh, that's cool.
I like cool. That.
Like a Skynet Glider that can rebound itself.
Yeah, because I always feel that way when I'm playing Sky Knight Glider. I'm like, if I pull it out of the center lane, it can never go back.
Yeah,
and I always want that flexibility later. So, anyways, random tangent there, but
yep.
I'm excited for new cards, right? This is the thing. They're releasing 8 new cards. We have no idea what they're gonna be. They could be really awesome.
I feel like I'm gonna be going over them twice because I'm doing my own set review, and then I'm also going over them on Lane 6. So that's gonna be interesting.
That's awesome. Yeah, will be fun to think about them from multiple perspectives as well.
Yep. This is actually similar to what Simulacrum does in an odd way with the bouncing back. Yeah, that's a fair point actually. Simulacrum can move away and back and things like that.
Yep.
Anyway, so Lotus has now been changed so that when you Varnus packet it back, it doesn't copy itself infinitely. This happened to me earlier actually. Basically, its effect only works if it's from hand now, so you can't just do, hey, Varna's Pact, my graveyard consists of 5 Lotuses and like 8 of the Endire Hounds. Have fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the main problem was that your chance of getting Lotus back was insane, because each one went into your graveyard. So you have like 15 Lotuses in your graveyard.
Well, and now that changes sort of the. I mean, this is not strictly a nerf. This is sort of a change in how the card is played, or playable.
I mean, it's a nerf, but it's not a nerf for the sake. It's not a nerf for the sake of lowering the power level. It's a nerf because they don't want Pact to be abused, I think.
My reason for saying it's not a nerf necessarily is that if you're a skilled Pact player, you can actually benefit from knowing that there are now fewer copies of Lotus floating around in the graveyard, that your odds of pulling something else are going to be higher than they would otherwise. So you can now play Lotus maybe a little bit differently, to the point where
No, there won't be fewer copies. It's only if you hit them that there are fewer copies.
Right, but that ultimately over the course of a game will result in instead of the packed pool being like 50% Lotus, it might be 25% Lotus, something like that. So I think what I'm talking about only really applies to people who are very in tune with what the graveyard looks like already. or are willing to like practice a lot with it. But this is the kind of thing where Varna's Pact is a very high variance card. This is something that gets talked about a little bit when talking about maybe the recent top 16 results in the World Championship qualifier. You have a card that can pull literally anything that's died in the game, stuff that's been banished as well. And so you've got this element of, okay, does this card win me the game here, or does this card basically give me nothing and then I have to struggle to just stay in it? So it can be game winning or game losing on a particular turn. And this, I think this change pushes it for some situations more toward the winning side, and then for other situations more toward the losing side.
To be honest, I think what this is that, it's like Solomon's just saying in chat, it's strictly a nerf. Yeah, it is strictly a nerf. However, I think what they're trying to do at the moment is they're trying to keep Pact in the game as it is without breaking it. Because it turns out that new mechanics interact weirdly with that card. So they're trying to figure out how to keep Pact in the game properly without causing really weird interactions. And Lotus was one of those. Lotus was one of those cards which was just kind of weird.
It does take away some recovery options for an NU player, though. That's for sure. So it changes the deck. That's what I'll say. This does change how this card is played.
Wait a second. Okay, no, they've added the repeat thing. I was about to say, doesn't it just not repeat anymore? But no, they added the repeat thing on the bottom, so it's fine. This is just a pact change. To be honest, I'm fine with Lotus being around without the stupid pact interaction. So that's fine with me. Lotus is still a very, very good card, and it's a nerf, but nowhere near, like, I think it's not really going to change the card's playability much at all. Anyway, moving on to Tower Scout. Now, Tower Scout is a Rise of the Forgeborn card, which meant that when it came out, I compared it to Wind Primordial. And this one is literally a strictly worse Wind Primordial if you check the stats, like, at the moment. Less, like, it. To give you an idea, when I looked at this when it first came out, alright, so, less health and attack at all levels, and less mobility. And I don't care that it's Aloyan. Aloyan gets paired with Tempest a lot. Like, that was the main problem I had with this card, and there's still a problem now. So what they've done is they've changed it so that its health is equal to its attack. 5, 5, 9, 9, 15, 15. I think what they're trying to promote at the moment is resilient mobility creatures, as opposed to the sheer offensive ones. Which I'm perfectly happy with.
I think this change is good. I don't think they've done too much with these most of these changes other than to bring them in line with what other cards are doing, to basically make more cards playable in the draft pool. It seems like.
Yeah, I can say that. Someone asking for the patch notes thing in chat. Let me just throw that in there. Alright, next card, Uranti Wasp. Now, this is one of the ones I'm actually looking forward to trying out and construct it a bit. Uranti Warstoker. There's a lot of Urantis, jeez. Alright, so this is what I like to call the buffing Yeti. He's Mr. Buffing Yeti. He's like an overwhelming force on a stick, basically, but it's not permanent. Now, the reason I don't think this guy is very, very good at the moment in draft or constructed, because Yetis, you always got to think about constructed when you look at a Yeti, let's be honest here. So, the reason he wasn't very good in either format, he was better in draft than constructed, obviously. The main problem is his stats are way too low, whereas his effect, while good in certain situations, was still not enough to push the stats up to a reasonable amount. So that's why I didn't see him play. And I'm happy that they buffed him. What they've done is that they've the level 2 they've left alone, which I think is okay. Level 2 is actually fairly decent for a Yeti. But level 1 has been improved to a 4-6, and level 3 has been improved to a 12-17, which I think is absolutely fine to buff one of the underplayed Yetis.
Yeah, this takes away its Patriarch combo effectiveness.
Too many of those already, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. It's like how much support or reliance maybe is a better word for it, do you want on that one interaction? Why not try experimenting a little bit with the stats and see if you can end up with more interesting Yeti decks or more diverse Yeti decks, given that you're still supporting Yeti decks, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna try this Yeti out with the heroic one that I forget the name of, the one that bounces around the board.
Warhammer.
Yeah, Warhammer.
Is that right?
What?
Is it what's War Stoker? No.
No.
What's is it Warhammer?
War Stoker's the one I'm looking at right now.
What's the Aloyan one? The Battle Hammer? What's that guy? I'm losing.
No, that's Oratech Warhammer.
And what's this guy?
Oh dear. We have a problem, guys.
It can't both be Warhammer.
We are looking for a Yeti. Alright, I'm just gonna put Yeti in search. Stop the podcast, we need to find a Yeti.
Do you not have any of this card?
Hammerfang,
that's it.
Okay.
Too many hammers.
Too many hammers.
Too many hammers, guys.
This is the funny thing about a chat. As soon as I find it, because of the delay, 2 people just put it in chat. I appreciate the help, guys, but that's the problem with doing things live. But anyway, so I've been trying to work on an AT variant of Yetis with Hammerfang and your anti-War Stoker when the buff is out, because they don't benefit from Weirwood anymore, whereas Hammerfang has a very, very nice interaction with Oratech Explosives, also known as being almost unblockable, especially in a Yeti deck with your War Leaders just wiping the board continuously. So, Mr. Hammerfang, a lot of explosives on that hammer.
Anytime you put 2 cards into the game that have very similar names, I really struggle with it. I hope that they can avoid that in the future. Give these guys some unique names. Torgmai Guardian. Torgmai was one of my favorite card names. I am Groot. How can you forget that one? You can't.
Yeah,
so
keep
that up.
One.
Stoneblade, keep that up because that one is memorable.
The question is, if you have why isn't there a Uranti in front of this guy's name? If it's Yeti, it has Uranti in front of it, okay guys? Agreed? Like, when I search Uranti, I want to see all the decks. Like, all the little Yetis I can put into my deck.
I really like the art on this card, though. I mean, getting a little bit off topic from the stats and all that, the art on this card is pretty awesome.
For War Stoker?
No, Hammerfang.
Oh, okay.
They that up there. I don't know, I'm on delay with the
yeah. Hammerfang, all I know is that Hammerfang is a pain in the neck to play against draft because you just can't block it. But,
I don't know. I don't know all the interactions with Hammerfang. I do know that if you're trying to and you don't have the right tools to deal with it, it's pretty fun to, or it's kind of like, it's frustrating to deal with it, but at the same time, it's kind of fun that you don't know where it's going to pop. So you got to plan your turn with the idea that it could go one spot, it could go the other. So it's a little bit tricky. It's like a little puzzle to deal with that card, rather than.
The best thing is I only have 1 Hammerfang right now, so when crafting comes up, I'll craft 2 from my Yeti deck. That one I'm trying. But the one I did get was in a draft, and the funniest game was I ended up getting 4 because I put Seals of Deepwoods on Hammerfang, which was hilarious. But the funniest thing was a guy plays a Branch Weaver Druid in front of it moves. Puts a token in front of it moves. He plays another guy and it moves again, then it hits him for lethal.
Oh wow. He almost had it.
He had like it was a pretty good chance he was going to block it after the last
Chasing
move,
it down.
but it's still funny. It's like you can't catch the Hammerfang.
Yeah.
Which is good with Oratech Explosives, in my opinion. Like, one of the problems with Oratech Explosives in the Yeti deck is you don't have open lanes a lot. You just, like, kill things in front and then attack, but then there's nothing on the board ready to Oratech, and you need to play Yetis to do that. So Hammerfang, I think, is the filling in the gaps there. So I'm going to try an AT Yeti list. I'm a bit tired of using Weirwood Patriarch to buff my 3 Yetis.
Sounds good.
Definitely try that out.
I'm looking forward to a new Hammerfang meta.
New Hammerfang meta, yeah. Alright, and that is the last change on here, apart from the Varnish Pact thing, which has just been changed so its text matches what it actually does. So that's pretty much it for the patch notes that we do actually have. So anything to mention before we move on to the organized play?
Just that it's been nice to talk about the patch notes, the fact that they're available before the patch goes live, the fact that we get a little bit of time to start thinking about things. That's really helpful. So just good on Stoneblade for putting that out there.
David has just mentioned that if you move in front of it with a mobility creature, it doesn't move, which is something I did in fact forget. So thanks for the catch there. Alright, so I will hand this over to Hecht again with the organized play stuff, because he's the one with the mighty notes.
Oh yes. So this week in organized play, on the ladder season 5 has ended, come to a conclusion, and we're live with season 6. This is the last season before the Kale Cup, which means that if you want to get in your double buy, you have 3 options left. You have unheroic, you've got unlegendary, and you've got standard play. That you can grind some games on that ladder, end up at the top, and have one of a very select group of people that have 2 buys. The only people with 2 buys are people who have won the ladder. I think there are people that have won more than 1 ladder. They still only have 2 buys. They just are hating out other people who could potentially get 2 buys. So there's a whole bunch of people that have 1 buy, but only maybe something like 10 to 15 people that have 2 going into this major tournament with, from what I remember, several $100s worth of prizes in gold codes from Stoneblade. So if you're interested in getting that little bit of an edge, get some games going on the ladder today. Right?
Apparently we should cover the spoiler we have. I wish we did have one.
Oh, we have spoil? What?
I have no idea. It's just people want spoilers, but unfortunately we are just as much in the dark as you guys are.
Spoiler, guys. It's gonna be 8 cards. There's gonna be 4 legendaries and 4 heroics, 1 of each from each respective faction. Can you believe it?
I know, right? Alright, moving on.
Next up, Casual Soulforge Wednesday. I mentioned this a little while ago. It was unheroic this past week, and it was either Upshot or Jabber that won it. I actually couldn't check this after the fact, and as soon as I actually lost to Upshot in the Swiss, and or the early rounds, and sort of played out the rest, but wasn't as in tune. So props to both of those guys for doing really well in the tournament. This is that was the 3rd Casual Soulforge Wednesday event, and now with every Casual Soulforge Wednesday event, there's an alternate art prize. So if you haven't checked those out, stop by the organized play section of the forum and see what's on. Each week it changes the format. This upcoming one I don't have handy, but it's relatively easy to check, and we'll post that with the links on the show here. And the next event, and it's every Wednesday evening, so you'll be able to see sort of the schedule going forward. Next event is actually a relatively big deal and something I'm personally invested in, and maybe you want to sort of say a few words yourself about this. This is the Forge Watch Invitational Part 1 starting tomorrow.
We have our own mini section on this, actually.
Yeah, so that's what I'm happy to talk about that till the end of time here, so let me know what you want to do with that.
We'll cut it down a bit from the end of time, but we do in fact have the pods for the group stages, and I'm going to casually move this over onto my monitor capture area and try to fit this on screen. I guess I'll drag it over a bit. Alright, so these are the pods we actually have, along with the time, so the times are not as relevant. So what we've got is there are seed numbers for each group. I'm guessing this is who was the best qualified in terms of positionings in general.
I think the seeding is based on performance in Forge Watch Invitational qualifiers, and then with, to some extent, sort of whoever could fit within based on their personal availability for showing up at this event. So I'm not sure that the numbers necessarily indicate, actual scores within Forge Watch qualifiers, but I do know that, looking at the top names across the board here, it's got to be people that did very well in Forge Watch Invitational qualifiers, because all of these people at the top are qualifier winners, from what I remember.
So we'll start off with Group A. We've got Hans, the one and only Hans at the top of that group. I'm not surprised he would have had number 1 seed considering how well he's been doing in these qualifiers. Then we have Captain, Technonaut, Soccer, Letics, Flexilo, which I do actually know, Wookie Mike, and Decurion. So there's a couple of really big names in there, and a couple ones which are less known, but based on the fact that they're there, are still going to be a pretty big threat. So, pretty interesting Group A. I think the two players most people are going to be watching, whether or not they should be, are going to be Technonaut and Hans, mostly because those are the two that are the most well known. I mean, some people know about Wookie Mike and things like that, but Technonaut and Hans, I think, are the two that people are going to be watching quite.
Yeah, they're the two that have streamed and built up kind of personal connections with the community, I would say.
Exactly.
Mike has streamed a little bit, but not nearly at the amount that those guys have. And the rest of the crew, I would encourage to start streaming, because then you'll be the people that people are following during the tournaments, and who doesn't want that, right?
Right. On to Group B, we have Xtoff, Memzi, Evil Weevil, the best name in the world, by the way. Carl Chu, Z Randalls, Is this like a names test for me?
I think it's Chodocho.
I failed that so miserably.
Indeed.
Jotto, indeed, and Ximane. Now, from that group, we do have Xtoff, Z Randalls, Evil Weevil, Memsi, I'd say, the best known there.
So yeah, a lot of this crowd is very familiar names. Zrandal's frequently a guest on Tiny Grimes' stuff and a regular tournament competitor. Indeed, of A1 notability, Ximane on Gox's Socks, as well as author of the Advanced Solforge Rules Guide. Xtoff having taken me down in the April qualifier in the finals with his Yeti list. Just a lot of familiar faces. Evil Weevil putting out the podcast, Inside the Drawer podcast, for several weeks. So just a lot of familiar names on here.
Yeah, pretty much more diverse group than Group A, that's for sure, in terms of well-known names. Group C, we have Jabor, Gotta BKD, and then we also have Child Please, Still Had All These, which is the second best name here, Busty, Owlus, Stoutmeister, and Best Even. Now, I think this one sort of fills into the same category as Group B, where there are a couple names which people know quite well, like Stoutmeister and Gotta BKD and things, but a lot of these names they vary from fairly well known to quite well known. Whereas, like Group A, as I said, a lot of those people in there people don't know about, and depending on how well they do in the Invitational, people will know about them.
Yeah, this is a good group though. These are people that haven't necessarily had as public exposure, but they're all. I mean, everybody on the thing about this tournament is that everybody has contributed to Solforge community in various ways, either through putting out content or, most notably, competing well and providing a serious level of competition for everybody else. That these people at the top of the rankings, they are only up there because they just barely edged out basically the other people in this tournament. For a handful of events. So as this tournament unfolds, it'll be interesting to see who beats who. I mean, it's best of one for the pods, where each player faces off against each other player in the pod. So you really have to bring your A game against each and every player. And actually, I love that, like seeing who you can beat and who's like your arch rival. If you've lost to them previously, you lost to them in the queue. It could be a lot of fun to sort of exact your revenge or continue the rivalry going forward.
I will say from that group, the ones I'm going to be looking out for are Gotta BKD, Stoutmeister, and Jabor. I've seen the other ones before, but those are the three that really do ring a bell for me.
Yeah, Still Had All These used to stream a little bit,
Yeah,
and was more familiar, I think, with the unheroic format. I can't remember what his contributions to Standard have been, but he used to take down the unheroic tournaments pretty regularly. And then Busty Alice, I'm not as familiar with Best Even, but Busty and Alice, as well as Child Please, I've seen in a number of tournaments. So.
Group D, we have Error Ash, who won the
first World
qualifier, which means he's automatically a person to look out for. Then we have that guy over there, Hectares.
Hey, what's up?
Seed number 2 in your group. Good job, man.
Yeah, I think that's based on a mix of Forge Watch qualifiers and other things, but I'm happy to be up there.
Now, moving down this group, we have Picador, so we haven't exactly gone down in quality from here. Then we have Tomos, Darken. It, is that an M
And
or an
Michaela,
R and an N?
and Michaela, one of those.
Okay, it's an M. Michaela, I guess. Kung Fu Mat and Don Dorillo. I've heard of most of these players.
Yep.
The only ones I haven't heard of is Michaela and Tomos. I've heard of the rest
Yeah.
of them though.
Yeah, Tomos is a new name for me. The rest I'm, faced off against in a couple of tournaments at least, and all regular tournament queue grinders. So this is a pod I'm excited to face. Era Ash and Picador in particular are my sort of like, if I had to choose two other players that would take it, those are the two that I'm most concerned about.
Okay.
And the rest, it's going to be a tough pod. I think all these pods are going to be really tough. What can I say?
They're all going to be tough, obviously, but we'll see which one's the best. Now, Gotta Be Kitty noticed that Group E and F were apparently scary, so we'll get to those now, I guess. Group E, Peon, Tetrain, Zwaxor, Nurk, Pesh, Schizo,
Yep.
JMO, and Ming is the King. I think I know all of those players fairly well.
Yeah.
He wasn't kidding. I actually do know most of those players fairly well. That's a pretty scary pod. I think the ones I know the least are probably Nurk and JMO, but I still have heard of them before.
hmm
But that's
Yeah,
going to be an
Nurk
interesting
recently
one.
has been really stepping up his tournament game. I want to say he's a sock, and he's streamed a little bit, so maybe he'll get more of that going in the future. But every time he has been in a tournament, I think he's streamed to some extent. So the other name that I want to note in there is Schizo, who's part of Team Armada, who they're the Florida group that's going to be putting on some more tournaments. So I would expect that he'll have a strong showing just based on being with a relatively strong team.
Yeah, Group E is the group of death, I think. And yeah, Gotta Be Kitty agrees with me. that's that's a pretty mean group. Group F, Vengevine, Caldrago, Is this really a name test for me?
Nimzo Indian is that one.
Nimzo Indian. I thought that was an L. I guess capitalized, just look the same. Whitefire, K Terry, PTK Tempo, Brakara, and Mono Lightning. I've heard of half of these players. I haven't heard of the other half, but the players I'm really kind of expecting to do really well in this tournament would be K Terry, who's amazing in terms of all three formats. He plays he plays a lot of each format, and I expect him to do well. PTK Tempo is also very, very good. We have Whitefire, who's been around for a long, long time, and actually might be here because of his last qualifier, his last invitational thing. I can't remember though. It's possible. He could have just done really, really well in a couple qualifiers and built up points. I don't know exactly how the transfer system works. I know that I'm pretty sure that the winner of the last one gets invited to this one.
So, just for people who are interested in participating in events like this in the future, when it comes to invitationals, generally there's a mixture of ways to get in. But in this case, it was a mix of people who did performed at a certain level within qualifying events, specifically designated qualifying events, and then select members of the community as selected by the Forge Watch crew. So they had a certain number of players that they wanted. They had a certain structure to the tournament they were looking for, and they went with a setup that allowed them some flexibility in making it interesting by bringing in personalities that they wanted to have there, as well as people that had proven themselves in relevant tournaments previously run by Forge Watch. So I like that setup that allows them to take somebody who might not have been able to attend as many of those events and still bring them in because of their performance in the community.
Yeah, that's understandable. Alright, so moving on to Group G, we've got two more groups. S1AL, or Psyl, depending on which way you put it. Viseg, Tiny Grimes, the Mad Hatter himself. Then we have Holy Ghost, Brian, CMU, Stewart, R. Prajner. What is it with Solforge players and names?
Yeah, I think that's just a person's name. So that might be a last name that is a little bit more difficult to pronounce unless you're
I'm not
familiar
good at
with.
names. I'm not good
Yeah.
at names. And then we have Electrophile at the bottom. So
Yep.
still, I think most of these groups follow the same principle of some well-known names and some names who just did well in the qualifiers and are
Yeah.
expecting big things out of them. Whereas there's a couple groups which are just ridiculous. But most of the groups are a composite of well-known players with some very, very high-level players that are just not as well-known because they don't stream as much or anything like that.
Yeah.
The last group is Silvertail, Mark, Kaleem. I'm not even going to try.
Clementis.
Okay. Ramping Shop, Dark Soul SP, Zekros, Carnivorous, and Deboy. So I think that group is a bit of an exception. I don't recognize two people in that group.
Mm.
There's
Silvertail is a regular tournament competitor.
Yeah.
Mark is known for his Mono Loyan stuff that he does. I think he's taken a little bit of a break from the game recently, but he had a strong showing in the April qualifier. Ramping Shop, Clementis, both. All these names are familiar to me from previous tournaments, basically. And then Deboy, not from tournaments so much, but from being a regular Soulforge streamer.
Alright, so that's pretty much it for the pods. Do you want to say anything else about the Invitational besides the fact that it's happening tomorrow?
No, just there's a key thing that's happening between this week and next week, which allowed for a little bit of, I think, flexibility for people. But yes, the patch is coming. So it was originally announced that the deck list would be the same both weekends for those players that made it from the group stages to the top 16. But now, because of the patch and because the changes are so drastic, there's going to be this opportunity for those players that make it to switch their decks to whatever they come up with from a week of testing, something like that.
This is where the socks will come in.
Yeah, I mean, there is that element. How good is your testing opportunity during that 1 week, and maybe that influences who takes it.
Yeah, that's a fair point. But anyway, for the Forge Invitational, I'll definitely be rooting for you. Because you're one of the Soulforge players, which I know of most of these people. One of the Soulforge players I actually do know.
I've already publicly stated that if I do win it, that the card that I design will be a Hydra. I will stick to that. So if you guys are hoping that a Hydra,
be a good one. I want a good Hydra.
So
we need a good Hydra. Hydra tribal.
Turkus is not rooting for me. My teammate. Here's the thing. No matter who wins it, they're gonna have earned it, because this is gonna be a serious event. I think this is gonna be a lot of fun.
Turkus, such a good teammate. You'll be the only one. Oh jeez. Anyway, so if that's it for the Forge World Invitational stuff, we'll move on to something which came up actually just before the cast, and I think we can go over it. I don't mind separating the video into two parts when I upload it. So we'll go on to the 6 not so secret secrets of Solus lists. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now this is going to be interesting, and I don't think my little window capture thing is going to like me for this. So what I think I'm going to do is I'll do some on-screen editing, which I don't normally do. So keep in mind, by the way, we're doing a short Q&A at the end, so if you have any questions you actually do want to ask properly, and are not trolly ones, because we won't even look at them, then put them in chat, and Hecht will be keeping track of them. So no silly ones about, I don't know, wearing socks or something. Proceeds to find a bunch of questions about wearing socks. Alright, so I'll just get this added onto screen.
You ask them not to put silly questions, you're only going to get silly questions now. Just a heads up. So I'll do my best to sort through this, but you guys do what you can. Throw your questions at me if you want to actually get them, sorted out on the stream. Make them as realistically answerable as possible.
Yeah, because if something isn't realistically answerable, we just won't answer it realistically.
Yeah, well, I'll just have to I'll have to move past it. So throw some questions at us, and we'll figure it out with you guys.
We have a screen. We have a
Nice.
screen. There is a screen on the screen. It is not quite screening though. So
I'm seeing the screen now.
there is a screen that is too large, and
Oh.
now it is an actual screen. And this is the only advantage of not having a guest on this week, so I can put the screen like that.
Awesome.
I'd be covering a person's face right now. We're asking for zombie Hydra from Turkish. Zombie Hydra. Anyway, so this is an article that Foxhole put out, like pretty much only a couple hours ago, which is 8 archetypes that came out of Secrets of Solus and people have been brewing with, which is an interesting one to look at simply because there's a patch coming up. So the first one is, I love the names of these decks, Call the Movers. Now this is basically the AT mobility deck that a lot of people have been thinking about doing with the Cinder Smokes and Ortec explosives and things like that. I haven't seen too much of it recently though. There was a lot of it, but then they just stopped.
I haven't really been playing this week, but last week I was seeing a lot of Brood Queen, and I was seeing a lot of sort of experimental AT, but it didn't really look like this. It looked more like Stasis Warding.
I think the major additions were Frostmane Dragon and explosives. Is Battlebrand in this deck? No, not this one. But
It'd be kind of fun. It'd be kind of fun to just run these through the queue and see how they do. It's nice to get sort of a set of lists provided that you can just say, look, this is what I have card pool for.
Here's a link. As soon as I put down a link, someone else gets it, obviously.
You can't hover over set 3 cards.
Yeah, I just noticed.
On the site.
David, I know that you have other stuff to do that may or may not be way more important than getting images fixed. But get on that eventually.
Get on it. No, I actually I would love to have that updated on the site as well. First of all for new players, but also for use externally on other sites is very helpful to have that.
All right, High Spirits. Again, I love these names. All right, so what's this one? I haven't actually read through this article yet, so it's interesting for me as well. Now, this is a Shallow Grave Nephrax list with Varna's Pact and Uru the Necrosage. I mean, always the problem with Uru is that the level 3 dies to a trigger from a Dire Hound.
I like this. I like any list with Nephrax. Really, I think that's a card that's going to be a lot of fun to experiment with as the card pool grows.
If you notice something interesting, the version he's got here is the Resurrection deck with Tempest as opposed to Utera. So it's like the Tarsus Pack thing without Brood Queen, like we saw out of the 2 non-Brood Queen lists at the last qualifier.
Yep, that's I know that he has personally been a champion of Uru in the past, so it's not surprising to see this sort of spirit tribal thing coming from him.
In case anyone wants to do some sort of Q&A with David, it's in chat. So if you have any things you want improved on the website, just put it in chat while he's reading it.
That's great. Thank you for making that available.
Thanks for stopping by. Anyway, so moving down, we have, I was expecting this, an Iztec deck. Now, Iztec is one of those cards that is really, really cool. The problem is you can't even try him if you don't have 3. Because 1 is useless, you never get the spells, and 2 is kind of sketchy, so you really do need 3. So that's always a bit of a problem. Now this is also running 3 dozers, which would explain why very, very, very few people have got this kind of list. Because no one has these cards. But no, this is I think this is the UT deck, similar to what I was talking about, only this is playing 3 Iztecs and no Thundersaurs, Ridgebacks instead.
Yep.
So not quite what I was talking about, but in a similar vein, if you look at it from a face value point of view. So,
yeah, it looks fun. I mean, it's exactly that. I'll try something like this when I have the opportunity to. This is not so far away in concept from something that I call hipster animals. I mean, Utera Tempest has some fun opportunities in it when you get the right sorts of interactions between cards.
Yeah, that's true.
So Static Shock Dozer is I think a very straightforward combo that allows you to do fun things to the board. I think your question about the lack of Thundersoar is a good one. So there's some experimentation even from this list that might prove even more fun to play with.
Apparently, Eon is saying Iztek is married to Tarsus.
Because it transforms and is a larger creature. That's an interesting idea. So there you go. There's another
NT, like, you could actually do some sort of NT tempo list that instead of using Grim Gaunts as the win condition, use Iztex. Like, Iztex hit really hard at level 3. A flame, like an Avatar of Flame Iztek will actually just do 40. Which is a little insane.
Yeah.
Alright, so moving on. Bombs away. This was actually on Dead on board, wasn't it? This kind of abomination deck.
I do not know.
But this is one with Contagion Lord, which is a really, really cool engine at the moment. Also running 3 Flesh Reavers. We've got Shallow Graves, because Shallow Grave with the A-Bomb is just ridiculous. It becomes actually free. That's an interesting interaction.
Yeah.
Spirit Cleave, interesting choice there for the Spirit Cleave. I guess you can sack your high health guys if you need to, and the only high health guy you have is Contagion Lord.
I like this idea of Shallow Graving Contagion Lord. The only thing I don't like about Contagion Lord is the tokens that it brings to the deck.
If it didn't bring the tokens, I think it'd be really good.
Yeah, but I really like this idea of having 3 plays on a turn. That is very, with the right support, that could be very, very strong. We've seen the closest we've seen to 3 plays in a turn is the card that is balanced by giving your opponent 3 plays in the turn first before you. So that is if that functionality comes in and is playable, you could have some very intense turns with the A-Bomb list.
And apparently Foxhole really loves Yuru.
Yeah, man. I know this. This is what I was saying. It's not the first time I've heard Yuru coming from Foxhole, so
Okay.
I'm glad he's like pushing it a little bit so that people know what to do with it.
But the problem is that this is the dies to everything card.
Yes, it does. It dies to everything.
It dies to even more stuff now.
Sometimes that invites an opportunity for your opponent to choose the wrong thing to kill it with, and then you end up having the better cards in leveled because of it.
There ain't nothing wrong about killing a Euro for free with a level 2 epidemic.
Yep.
Like, seriously. Anyway, Contagion Lord, really cool. Dizzian Compost Heap. Alright, what is with these names? I guess... Wait, I was about to say, this is a Brood Queen list, right? No, it's a Crypt Conjurer list. With Brood Queen. You know, this is... I mean, I should not be surprised. Foxhole does this a lot. So, this is the life gain list, but with Crypt Conjurers.
Sludges. Yeah, I've seen Crypt Conjurer Sludge. How many Necroom spells is this running? 3, 6, 8. Siphon is 2 more 8.
1, 2, 3, 6, 9.
Is it 9?
12. Well, it's running 12 total spells. Is this Necroom only? Yeah, it is. So, shows how much I play with Crypt Conjurer, right?
I think he's got 2 Siphons, 3 Varric Embrace, 3 Epi, so that's 8 only. That's probably enough. It's probably enough with 3 Crypt Conjurers.
Varix gains a lot of life, though, with Crypt Conjurer on the board.
Yeah.
So that's enough to hold you over for a bit. Oros, I think, is your main life gain thing, though. Or, I think, as opposed to Crypt Conjurer, I think running the Dryad that gains you life when you play it 6/7.
Spear Bloom.
May work a bit better. So that's one way of looking at it. But yeah, it's an interesting list. Tharby Dragons. Now, based on the icon, I'm guessing this is a Killian deck with Scorchmanes. So we got some Aether Forge Oracle. Alright, I did not go that deep in my level everything deck. This is when I'm like, I love making new decks, and then I see Foxhole's list, and I'm like, I don't like making new decks apparently, because I don't go nearly as far as he does. Like when
Oh,
I
I see.
make an
I
eight,
see what you're saying.
when I make a
Uh,
leveling deck, I'm like, yeah, we'll play like 6 leveling cards, and then we'll play some other stuff, and he's like, nah, 12.
yeah, just go all like fully commit to a particular like archetype or idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Like no, you wouldn't brew the poison deck, right? Like you wouldn't brew the all-in on poison deck.
I tried once, and I gave up after 3 incarnations.
I think that's what happens, right? If you brew and then it has no success. For example, in the constructed queue,
Not even a
it's
hope.
it's not encouraging you to do more of that. But there has to be some element of where the experimentation is rewarded. So I like the
Yeah.
casual Soulforge Wednesday event has a fun component. This is something like, this sort of goes in hand with because Foxhole is the organizer of those events. If you brew like silly or really like all in on a particular concept idea, it maybe just happens to work in that particular event, but it looks really fun in the process. And I think something like this Dragons deck or all in on Abominations can be very fun in that way. So
Well, I
maybe
do
it's not
find kind of crazy
maybe it's
about
not
this deck, by
constructed
the way.
viable.
This deck is like, oh, wait, before I go into the deck, first of all, I know that the whole lore thing is like the factions are at war with each other. Just looking at Killian's art, how does a Loyan ever lose a skirmish?
Yeah.
He has
I-
a laser on his arm. Like, it's a fair point. How does a Loyan ever lose a battle?
I mean, Necreum just doesn't die, something like that. Tempest is already burning, so and Utera just regrows, something like that. So they're all fine. They all just never die. Aloyan always wins the battle, but everybody else
It's
just
gonna
comes
be
back.
like one of those we have our turf, we don't need to go anywhere moments. I think.
Aloyan's made of robots anyway, so it's like even if you killed them, they just like
Doesn't
upload their consciousness. So
Or they just like computerized anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's
yeah,
good
exactly.
anyway. Then there's things like Warhammer, who would never actually have problems in a battle ever because he has so much armor. You never kill Warhammer. You never kill Warhammer in combat unless you're actually an Oros. Which is these are like the applying way too much lore to the actual game moments.
Just saying, more official lore. We won't have to make up our own
Yeah,
ridiculous stuff.
that's
I mean,
true.
it's fun to make up the ridiculous stuff, but I want to know who's winning the war, and like when is there when are the peaceful times, and what are the like
Worrying
most
times.
worrying times?
Yeah. Anyway, so this list, this is like it's gone like full level. You never go full level, but he
Never go
has,
full.
He's got like 2 Citadel guards, 1 Iron Maiden. Hey, the 1 Iron Maiden I agree with. We've got 3 burnouts. I actually don't understand that quite as much. 3 burnouts, 2 lightning sparks, and 3 battle brands, and only 1 barbarian. Why not just run 3 barbarians? Like,
I don't know.
You have
The
6
burnouts I
kills.
The burnouts I understand. The burnout like at a certain point you just don't need to level more cards. You just want to remove stuff you're not
I
going
mean,
to
the
get
sparks.
some good value. It's an overlevel or it's an overload. So
I mean the sparks,
good.
because it's like spark is good in decks that want to go burn to the face, but to be honest, when you get to player level 3, you're going to be winning with Scorchbane Dragons and like that hit for 30 effectively in 1 turn with that trigger.
maybe
And-
he's sparking his own Iron Maiden
No,
for
gee.
value.
Wait, what? It's still
You
go
know-
to the face.
I know.
Battle brand
That's
for
the best.
value.
That's the best part. Yeah, battle brand for
Well, it's
value.
like
That
BM.
that's actually kind of cool. Yeah, it is.
Oh,
Yeah, a little
jeez.
bit of BM.
A little bit of BM. That battle brand for lethal. Never heard that about before. Alright, so I think that's it for the actual the Secrets decks. I mean, in all honesty, I know we're kind of making fun of it a little bit, but it's cool that people do these kinds of brews,
No,
and it's awesome
I
that
love
they
it.
make articles on
And
it.
I love he's putting it out there for people, not just with the deck list, but also with sort of the concept and what to do with it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I really, really like this kind of stuff because these are the people that put the seeds in the metagame. Like they put the seeds in the metagame, and then the people who spend a lot of time just straight playing will generally tinker a bit with the lists, and that's where you get really refined lists. That's why teams tend to produce really good lists, because the deck builders hand it to the pilots and then they sort it out themselves. So it's interesting to see sort of the baseline, where a lot of these decks look terrible, but something else to realize is that if you tinkered these lists a bit and kept the same idea, then maybe you get something pretty powerful and unique.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
it's always good to look there. And not to mention, Brood Queen's getting nerfed, so you'll appreciate this article. Need new ways of playing Brood Queen, like the Dizzying Compost Heap.
Yeah, Brood Queen. That's a good card. What can I say?
Yeah, it's a good card. So anyway, that's pretty much it for the actual podcast. We'll just take a few questions if any of you have them, and then we'll sign off.
So one of the first questions was, do we have spoilers? No, we do not have spoilers. Do you have Kibler's phone number so we can ask him for spoilers? No, but if you can get it, if you get his phone number, he'll probably give you a spoiler just because you worked that hard, right?
Just to get him. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Have a spoiler. You
that,
spent way too much effort trying to get this phone number.
Hopefully we did. It did sound like I saw some real encouragement of spoilers to come out before the cards are actually released. So hopefully they do that, because it seems like people are really chomping at the bit for that. The next question was, how long ago did Turkus pass you as a top dog on Gox's socks? Also, why is Turkus so good? Those are the questions. What I'll say is, I have long considered Turkus to be a stronger player than myself. He also is a very strong deck builder, and between those two factors, he's able to innovate very quickly at the start of a new metagame, or just in terms of pushing a metagame forward. So I don't know what he's been doing. I don't know why we're still playing Brood Queen lists in constructed queue. I blame Turkus for not fixing.
Maybe it was just too good.
Yeah, that's my thought too, right? Like, if Turkus can't bring this new deck, and there are some other very talented deck builders out there. I'll give shout out to Stoutmeister for actually throwing out a lot of lists to his teammates over on A1. But it's so far, that seems like the one that's been doing it, and I don't think it's people being lazy. I think it's really just it's been something that's been oppressive to the point where people sort of not give up, but almost do what makes more sense than anything else.
No, don't go spam Kibler's channel and say David sent you. That's just mean.
Brian Kibler is streaming. Is that what I'm to understand?
BK Kibler is streaming, apparently.
I mean, he's doing it. So, a couple other questions I did see, but I know that they weren't all for serious. Aside from David's messaging of if you have suggestions for website improvements the community would be interested in, I think he's open to that. So if you have more suggestions, I would recommend stopping by the Steam chat.
And actually have one from David though. Just got this one. If you could add, he's just asking us because the chat is not really giving him much. If you could add one feature to the website, what would it be?
Yeah.
That's actually a very good question. I guess add a feature, not fix a feature.
I would like to see some of the content more easily accessible in terms of the blog posts, but I think that's something that could be fleshed out a bit better.
The community news tab, like this is something. One of the things I do like. I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with Blizzard when it comes to Hearthstone. So I don't agree with a lot of the stuff they do, but one of the things I do like is that every week they put out a post with the weekly, or in the past week, the like video and article like content releases to get those a bit more publicity. Maybe that's something you could think about.
I mean, that just reminded me of sort of the blue posts. If you could have a quick access to Stoneblade's contributions to the forums, that would be helpful for me.
Oh, that's cool, actually, like on the Hearthstone forums, where you have a blue post structure where you can just look at the latest admin posts.
Exactly.
That's actually a good one. That's a good one.
That would be really helpful.
Yeah, I agree. Getting some sort of, I mean, it wouldn't be blue posts, it'd be like, well, blade posts.
Oh, yes. Nailed it.
Blade posts. Let's do this. Stone cold posts. No, it just sounds terrible.
It's just a rock. It's like tiny rocks all over the website.
Yeah, but that's actually a really good idea. Getting some sort of like pseudo blue posting just so we can keep track of what they're putting on the forums. That'd be really cool.
And let's see here. Aside from that, for me, it mostly comes down to the ability to see what other, like what's getting support from people in the community. So some kind of moderation system within the forums where players can give each other feedback that isn't all in text form, but is a little bit easier for people to say like, yes, I like this, no, I don't like that. So just like a basic voting system for the forums would be helpful for me.
Unless there's any other questions, I don't think there are. We're going to close out for today. Talk about a lot. Even though we didn't have a guest today, which was a little annoying, it did mean that with two of us we could run through these things a lot faster, and there was a lot of stuff this week between the patch and the Forge Watch.
We had a lot to cover.
Yeah, so it worked out fairly well. 2 hours, like basically 2 hours, which is fine. So keeping in mind it's 2 hours, I'll probably get this video up tomorrow on my YouTube channel, and then I'll send Hectares the file as well, and he can get it up when he wants to.
Sounds good.
The link to my YouTube channel is in the description, and if you want any of the other info, then I'll just link the Reddit post with all the information on the podcast. But besides that, we're just going to close out, I think, for this week. So I'll just link this. There you go. Anything to say before we close out?
Thank you guys for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun this week. I think the questions, bring your questions for next time. Ask a lot. They don't all have to be serious, but the more serious ones we get, the more fun I think the end of the show is. So excited for that one. And as Jotto mentioned, this is going up on YouTube. So if you thought of something afterward and you want to ask, post it there, and we'll get back to you.
Yep, put it in the comments, and then we'll get back to you as soon as we can. But anyway, thanks all for watching. And if you'd like to see more of this, we're doing it every single Friday. Now, I think we're pretty much going to move it to this time. And the reason for that is because I'm in Europe, so I can still do this time. But a lot of the people we want to get on are in the US. So moving it forward 3 hours actually makes it much, much easier for them to not wake up at 8 in the morning to do a podcast. So we'll probably move it forward to this time, and if there are any other time notifications, I'll put it in the Reddit post and keep you posted there. So if you want to check, then go over there, check that regularly if you're planning on tuning in next week. So thanks for watching, and this is Jotto and Hectares signing off for the day.